I'm Phil DeLuca.
I'm Shivam Putt.
And we are Commanderin.
I still am, man. Come on.
No, I know. I'm just happy to be recording. Commanderin. Thanks for listening, everybody. We put a spotlight on community issues, but never, ever talk about three banned topics: religion, politics, and Hearthstone.
Got one off the list, guys.
Yes.
You other three best keep your eyes open because I'm coming.
Shivam has insisted we remove the hip-hop because he wants to spit some mad rhymes.
You know, I came to drop bombs. That's all I'm saying.
Folks, if you want to hear Shivam drop some bombs or prevent him from doing so, you can support us by giving us 5-star ratings wherever it is you get your podcast from. You can also, and this is perhaps more influential than 5-star ratings, visit patreon.com/commanderin.mtg, and $1 a show and a note to us will log your vote as to whether or not Shivam and or Sean should be rhyming. Oh, now Shivam, we're missing a voice, aren't we?
Yeah, it seems that poor Sean Watson was crushed by Team USA losing in the World Cup qualifiers, and so he's taking a day of mourning. We wish you well, Sean, and I know that you wanted to support the right team, so we welcome you to Team USA's fandom. See you soon, buddy. See you soon.
Wow. Yeah. Sorry about that, Sean. Right now, everybody, if you don't know Sean is actually a very sensitive person, and it's just rivers of tears. Rivers. If you follow him on Twitter, and we'll get to that toward the end of the show, you'll see it directly. In the meantime, don't forget to visit us on YouTube. You should comment, rate, and subscribe on any of the videos you see. That helps us bump up in the ratings and therefore get exposed to even more people, which allows
but not in that way.
Not in that way. In a good way. It's good exposure. Because we have a wonderful show lined up for you, and we want to let other people in on this wonderful secret. So we are starting the run-up to Halloween, Shivam. And this episode, it's a scary, demonic deck featuring our favorite hybrid dragon demon, Malfegor.
Only dragon demon? I'm sure they could have shoved a few more in there, man.
Right?
He could have been a dragon demon vampire wizard.
I'm gonna have to correct you there. It's pronounced Malphagor.
Oh.
Malfegor.
Wow, that's got a purr at the end of it. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm just staring at my Nazan deck, so it kind of just took me over. Because I'm sure Malphagor's got some kitty in him somewhere.
So to speak. Maybe that's how the cat dragon... never mind.
Oh, God.
To talk about Malphagor, and I've mentioned this deck a couple of times on the show now, we've asked Daniel Haas, a.k.a. D. Haas. I might slip and call him D. Haas because that's how I was introduced to him. We asked him to come on because it's his deck with all of its wonderful twists and turns that, shall we say, turned us on to the potential of Malphagor. So, D. Haas has been gaming since childhood. This is a familiar story to many of us, I'm sure. He got into Magic pretty briefly in high school with a Rakdos Hellbent Precon. We got to talk about that. And then he fell off until college and the Lorwyn block, and he's been playing ever since. He's been at Riot Games, too, since 2012, and that's how I met him. He's part of the weekly Commander meta. And I caught sight of him playing some ridiculously fun deck. It was either Phage or Malfegor across the table, and we struck up a conversation, and here we are.
The idea that there's a Phage commander deck is just so absurd that I just can't get over that. Like, how do you What? What?
So
Well, say hi first, Daniel.
hi. It's good to
Sorry,
be
I
here.
should have said hi.
Yeah, I think the first one that you saw me playing was Phage. Phage the
Yeah.
Untouchable, which I guess for people who don't remember this legend,
It kills you.
yes, it's the card that when I pull out the deck and I say, hey, here's my commander, and they look at it, everyone reads it and it's like, so you do know that? And I'm like, yes, I do know that my command zone is not my hand. So yeah, for people that don't know, Phage, when it enters the battlefield, if you did not cast it from your hand, you immediately lose the game. But then,
It is absurd.
when it deals combat damage to a player, that player immediately loses the game. So basically no downsides.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
And it costs 7.
hmm Yeah, so most games with Phage, I don't even end up casting it. But every once in a while I do, and I have a few ways of making it stick, like Torpor Orb and Platinum Angel, and I think Sundial of the Infinite also. So there are ways, but sometimes you just sort of cast it and you hold it in the air,
Oh, that's
being like,
cute. Oh,
is someone going to shatter my Torpor Orb? I hope not.
It's really risky.
It's moderately risky, but then, it enters and you give it haste and you kill someone.
that's so absurd. That is so dumb. I'm just like, I'm staring at Phage right now, and I'm just like, you're kidding me, man. I mean, dude, a Rakdos precon into Phage. Like, you definitely are displaying a specific style of play for sure.
I do have a lot of varied decks of varied styles, but yeah, my style tends to be, this is a multiplayer format. I'm going to be the player who's just doing crazy weird things, and like other people can deal with that powerful guy over there, and other people can have win conditions. I'm just going to, do crazy things.
I'm going to sit over here sacrificing all my permanents every turn.
Hey, I mean, if you got to.
I like the way you think, sir.
Well, we will get to the main topic of his Malphagor deck. And again, thanks for coming on. This is really, really special for me.
Yeah,
it's good.
It's good to be on. Thank you.
But first, we have a bit of news to talk about. Daniel, I don't know if you realize this, but those delicious playmats that you see me bring out every week, we actually have some for sale. And I'm not suggesting you right now go over to commanderin.mtg.com/ourproducts and purchase one of these.
But Phil is too modest. I will be suggesting it directly. You absolutely should go to commanderin.mtg.com to Our Products and pick one of these things up.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
And if you do, Daniel, you would get a free Deadeye Navigator signed by either me or Sean, or both, actually, signed by me and Sean, or a God Pharaoh's gift signed only by me, but still. And if you're really lucky, D. Haas, it'll be a foil version of one of those cards.
That does sound like a good deal.
Hey, man, God Pharaoh's gift is actually a great card.
It is.
It's actually really so Deadeye Navigator, if we're being perfectly honest here.
Yeah, if we're being totally honest, they're both very good, fine cards. One of them is just hated. Hated.
Well, one of them breaks the game forever.
Yeah, and the other is God Pharaoh's gift. In actual news, this week they announced a change to the Magic logo, the first significant change to the Magic logo in like forever since it turned from blue to orange. This one is now some kind of polished steel with the Planeswalker spork next to it.
I actually really like the Planeswalker symbol. I'm not going to lie. I think that thing looks really cool. The font that they used for Magic the Gathering is going to take a bit of work to grow on because it's definitely different. I mean, it looks like they tried to take the original Magic logo, which was all fantasy-ish, and then sci-fi it up some, like, brush steel, and the A looks really weird because it's the exact same A as the original Magic cards, but in a modernized, I mean, it's going to take a lot of work to grow on me. Like, when I first saw it, I was less than thrilled, but it's kind of grown on me because of the fact that they're not changing the backs of the cards, and if they were to do that, I would quit the game forever.
I'm glad you are not prone to hyperbole.
I would never say something so extreme.
Yes. Me, I would be fine if they just put, if they made the card backs black. That would be fine. I don't play it for the card backs. I never see the card backs. I put them in
that's
sleeves.
all you scrubs put sleeves on your decks. Huh?
Yeah.
I've got like 15 commander decks, and maybe 3 of them are sleeved. And like maybe 4 of them are in deck boxes. So
That's painful to hear.
It is painful, isn't it?
I mean, like 80% of them are precons that I've just added a few cards here and there to. The decks that I actually make originally by myself with my beta soul rings or whatever, sure, I'll put some sleeves on maybe if you force me, or if I'm going to take them outside the house. But whatever, dude. Like, I play with dual decks all the time. I like looking at the back of the cards. The back of the cards evoke a wizard's spell book. It feels authentic. It feels magic. It feels like this is definitely where I'm drawing my power from. I'm casting spells. It puts you into the game in a way that this new logo doesn't quite do. However, this new logo will be great for Arena or for digital products or for other things that they need to grab people with. Like, I hated the yellow logo. I like the new orange one they put out in 2015, but the yellow one looked kind of lame. But I understand that when you're making products and putting them in a store and somebody has to look at it from 10 miles away, that dark blue cobalt color is not going to stand up as much as a popping yellow, and neither of those are going to stand out as much as Sporky over there. So, yeah.
Sporky?
I mean, yeah, Sporky. Sporky is the lost planeswalker.
Yeah, the only problem is if you saw the logo by itself, it doesn't say Magic. And in terms of how powerful it is, I was actually talking to Dreamtime Drin on Twitter, and she pointed out that the original Garrick handprint from which this current logo, the Spork, is derived, is a very powerful, it's a very tribal, personal kind of touch.
Yeah, I saw what she had to say about that, and she's definitely got a point. However, that original handprint looked way lamer than the more polished Spork. And I hate calling it Spork. It's a planeswalker symbol. It looks cool. I think it's super cool. I love having spin downs with that symbol. I think my Kaladesh shirt is like the planeswalker symbol all steampunked out. I think it looks amazing. The Garrick one just looked and it's on Jeremy Jarvis in the picture, and he just looks like a college kid with a random shirt that he picked up at Burning Man or something. And I'm like, this is lame. It doesn't say anything about Magic at all. It's just
Wasn't he just out of college in 2012?
That image is way older than that.
Oh yeah, because it's Lorwyn.
Yeah, so it was 2007. So then he probably was maybe just out of college.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Anyways, we will see what they do.
You like the polished steel versions of everything.
Oh, I like the fantasy version, but if I'm not going to have the fantasy version, at least I get the cool Planeswalker logo.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll have to see what they do. The A does not look very good at all.
Yeah.
But it looks kind of like the Watsy swoosh, which is a little weird. But whatever.
Haas actually takes a quarter to all of his card backs and he scratches out the logo and the Deckmaster line.
Yeah, I just don't like the Deckmaster line.
Yeah, he just scratches it out.
Oh, I love the Deckmaster line. Oh my god, are we already going to be fated to be enemies forever right from the start? The Deckmaster line gives balance to the card.
It's really sort of disconcerting because he doesn't sometimes we have to remind him it's his turn because he'll be pulling cards out that he just got and he just starts scratching
and
out
I'll
with a quarter.
just grab them from other people too. If I control your permanent, then that means I get to do whatever I want to the card.
Good old 1993 rules. I love that. It's give the card back at the end of the game. All right, Richard, Jesus Christ.
The other change is that Mark Rosewater indicated, it was weird that he telegraphed this. There is a redirect damage to planeswalkers rule change coming. So that's, of course, whenever you take direct damage as a player, you can redirect it to a planeswalker. Sorry, your opponent who's doing the damage can redirect it to a planeswalker you control. Some of the critics I've seen talking about this say that this cements the disconnect between players and planeswalkers. How do you guys feel about this? Do you think this is going to change anything?
I think that the disconnect between players and planeswalkers happened when they created planeswalkers as character cards. When the stories became about characters and you could play these planeswalker characters, then the idea of you as a planeswalker was basically gone anyways. Like, they don't care about lands as being locuses for you to draw mana from, to cast spells from across the plains into this battle you're having. They care about the fact that you're here helping Gideon win the war, or whatever it is. So, that era of Magic is gone.
Oh,
I think it's just much easier that we can just sit there and go, I lightning bolt your Gideon, instead of I lightning bolt you and then redirect it to Gideon. No, just whatever. It's just easier.
Well, from a lore perspective, I don't really see any major difference because, I don't know, it's supposed to be like, your friend is here helping until they leave because they aren't loyal enough. I don't know, for some planeswalkers that didn't make as much sense as others, but it works fine. I'm more interested in the rules side of it. So I know that they're changing how targeting works to just say target a thing. But I'm interested in does Earthquake work differently now? Because it used to be that you could Earthquake and hit either the player or one of their planeswalkers, but not multiple of their planeswalkers.
Oh yeah, good.
So I'm wondering now if that's going to work differently.
Well, specifically regarding Earthquake, which is a good question to ask, Morrow said, hey, when we actually roll out the change, we will put out an article, and I don't know the specifics, so I'm not going to answer that right now. So we don't know if Earthquake works the way Earthquake used to work, but I don't know how Earthquake interacts with planeswalkers anyways, so I guess I would have just kind of been faking it as I go.
I do know how it works, but it's more complicated than it needs to be. I will say that every time they've made a cleaning up rules change, it's always been positive. There has not been one where I've been that should not have happened. So
the tuck rule, or being able to put your commander into your hand or into the command zone. I don't know. I think that's fine. I mean, I'm not a fan of planeswalkers becoming legends, but whatever. Ultimately, they're right when they're look, these cards should just work the same because it's just easier. And I would bet money that this has to do with the fact that they're putting out Magic Arena, and so this makes Magic Arena a lot easier to code if these things all work kind of the way you expect. Planeswalker redirection in a game like the Hearthstone-like Arena would probably be really just so much extra clicking and so much more irritation, as opposed to just drag your lightning bolt over to Garrick's face and go zap and call it good.
It also just made for weird gotcha things.
Yeah, it was not a fun experience when somebody would be you just get corner cased into losing something you did not expect to
if
lose.
I have hexproof, why does that mean you can't kill Chandra over there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly mind it.
Yeah, I don't particularly mind it either. It's just change, and change, of course, makes people very nervous. So if you're a listener, if you're among the people who became nervous as a result, tweet at us and share with us your emotional state regarding this change. We will help you. We'll counsel you through this. Actually, Sean he works in this part of the health industry in England, and he would happily counsel you. Remember, that's at Copain26. Now, we're about to hit our main topic. We have two more things to talk about, dear listeners, and then we will get straight to
Malfegor.
Crazy, tipsy-turny world.
Yeah, I am really excited to see this.
Yeah,
weird.
Wait for it. It's amazing. So Sean is brewing Vona for next week's spooky Halloween episode. It's our second one. This is the Halloween season. Of course, that's why D. Haas is on, to bring us the scariness, which is Malfegor. Malfegor.
That's it.
And for the first time, we are going to have a little minor topic called the life score. And this is where we talk about something cool that happened in one or more of the hosts and or guests' lives. And so this week, Shivam has something to tell us about because of his recent travels.
No, I'm super excited about this segment because it's nice to have a little bit of levity on this serious podcast we have all the time. So this past week, I was on vacation, and I was at a place where I was able to play some Magic cards, and it was a good time. But one thing any traveler of Magic would know is that when you get to the airport, your deck boxes look super weird on the X-ray machines when you send it through the luggage. And almost every time, they make me pull out my decks and do the scan and check for whatever they're checking for. And they always end up delaying you like a good 3 to 5 minutes. And on the way home from my vacation, I was like, you know what? I don't want to waste any more time because I know they're going to drag me and we've got to get to the airplane. We're going to be late. So I just pull my deck boxes out the way you would with a laptop, and I put them into a box and run it through the x-ray machine. Now, the trick is I was at Seattle Airport at SeaTac, and in Seattle is the one place in the world where they actually recognize Magic deck boxes. So much so that the TSA guy, when I put my 3 deck boxes into the thing, he was like, "Oh, you bring some standard decks?" And I'm like, I'm looking at the watch and I'm like, I've got to get to my plane. I'm like, no, these are EDH decks. He's like, EDH? I love EDH. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, great. Thank you. And he's like, who are your commanders? I'm like, oh my God, are we really having this discussion right now?
Because you were late, right?
Yeah, I was late. My son was acting up and my wife is like, we need to go. And I'm like, I've got Brea and zombies and my tree folk. I got to go, man. He's like, oh, dude, I love zombies. Are you playing Scarab-Lord? I'm like, oh, my God, I'm playing Grimgrid. Can I please go, sir? It's like, dude, I got to tell you about my Sliver deck. I've got a 4-turn kill. I'm like, well, you know what, man? I host a Commander podcast. This is fantastic. I wish you the best of luck. I need to go right now. And I grabbed my decks and booked it. But it was such an amusing, all 3 of the guys at the TSA, not just one, but all 3 of them were totally like, oh, I play Magic. I know Magic. I'm like, where the hell am I?
Yeah.
This is the first time in my life I've been slowed down by TSA for them wanting to talk to me about Magic and not just like when I left GP Vegas, they almost made me unsleeve all my decks.
Yeah.
You know how long that would take?
Yeah.
We play EDH. I'm like, look, man, they're just cards. It's like, are you sure all of these are cards? I'm like, oh, there's 700 cards in here. Yes, sir, they're all cards.
Yeah, the best I've ever had is this guy ran my bag through the x-ray machine 3 times, and I'm like, and I told him, I said, it's a bunch of cards. And he pulls them out, and he goes, well, these are cards? And he opens it, and he kind of looks through it, closes it, and I go, yeah, do you play Magic? And he goes, oh, Magic the Gathering? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, no, I play Pokemon. And I'm like, all right, great. Thanks. But
all right, man.
Not even I played. So this is a really cool story. That's great.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. My vacation was really good. And maybe the next time I'll tell you about how me and somebody played a Gishoth deck against my Brea deck, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Yeah. Now our main topic, Malphagor. Now, D-Haas, you're going to be doing most of the talking in this section. So, listeners, we will provide a link to the Malphagor deck on our deck stats page. It's already up there. If you happen to be one of the people who obsessively monitors our deck lists, then you've already seen it. Daniel, tell us why Malphagor.
Well, I don't know. Malphagor, I literally, I opened him in Alara block, and I just immediately loved him. So when you play Magic, you get to a point where you're no longer looking at the picture, you're no longer looking at the name. You just open a card, you immediately look at, the power toughness, and what's happening in the text and the mana cost, and you just immediately do that, move on, right? Malphagor is one of the few cards that the flavor text is what drew me to it, which just is not how I typically play. And so I guess for people who don't know Malphagor, the best legend, he's a 6 mana, 6/6 flyer, so he's typical kind of dragon, except for he's not a dragon.
Good old 6/6.
Yeah, 6/6 for 6. He's red black, and he's not just a dragon, though. He's a demon dragon, and his flavor text
is a
demon cannot be trusted, and a dragon will not be ruled. And I don't know, just something about that grabbed me.
That's so Rakdos.
It is. It absolutely is. Malphagor, like you said, is 6 mana. That's 2 and black, red. Crazy. 6/6 demon dragon has flying. When Malphagor... Ooh, look at that. The old Shards of Alara text. When Malphagor comes into play, discard your hand. Each opponent sacrifices a creature for each card discarded this way?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing?
So basically 0 downside. Yeah, I don't know. I immediately loved Malphagor, and he was the first real commander deck that I built. And the difference between him and all my other commander decks is that when you play Malphagor, you have to sort of put yourself in the mindset of Malphagor and not ask, would I do this, but would Malphagor do this?
Yeah, you got to commit when you're playing something this suicidal.
Yeah.
Because you could host yourself really badly, dude.
You can. You don't play this deck if you're, optimizing around, min-maxing or something like that. You play this deck if you want to, crush people.
I mean, as a Vorthos, I love basically everything about this. The art looks sick, and the deck just looks... I don't know that I would be able to stomach playing something so bonkers town like this.
Yeah, it really is bonkers. Some of those cards that Daniel will be throwing away. And not just with Malphagor. We'll talk about some of those cards. He's the stats for the deck. He's got 16 creatures, 11 enchantments, 11 sorceries, 6 instants, 14 artifacts, 1 planeswalker, and then 39 lands. And this is the part in your deck list, you didn't even put the lands in because A, you didn't want to be bothered to put them in, and B, there's nothing really special happening with those lands, is there?
No, not really.
You're mostly throwing them away in the late game anyhow.
Yep, pretty much.
Now we'll start marching through some of the sections you've identified. Ordinarily, listeners, we might consider things like how many draw cards are there, how many mana rocks, and we would call them by those sections. But no, this first section is called "We're All Locked In Together,"
Yeah.
aka "Keep Up the Infighting." What's this section about?
So I don't know. This is the section which is my favorite part about Black and also my favorite part about Rakdos, which is just making people make choices they don't want to make and sort of like changing how they evaluate stuff, changing how they interact with each other, and just sort of like putting them in awkward positions. So one of my favorite EDH cards, one that I will add in every Black deck that will let me, is a Plague of Vermin. This is an old, I want to say Shadowmoor card. It's 7 mana sorcery, which says, starting with you, each player may pay any amount of life. Repeat this process until no one pays life. Each player puts a 1/1 black rat creature token into play for each 1 life he or she paid this way.
What?
Retropotence.
So your first thought might be like, hey, doesn't this anti-synergize with my commander who wants my opponents to sacrifice creatures? And my answer is yes. That's fine. I have played this and just been like, I am going to pay 1 life. And then the person next to me says, I am going to pay 30 life. And then everyone else looks at their board and they're like, I guess I need blockers, so I'll pay 25 life. And then I just pay nothing, and then I damnation immediately afterwards.
Oh no.
Which is always fun.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I'll be way behind and I'll just be like, okay, I'm just going to pay, 35 life and go down to 1 and just, see what happens.
Yeah.
Gut shot?
That's nasty.
Yep.
Plague of Vermin is 6 and a black.
What a ridiculous card.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. It's really late game. You just pay it and then you make people suffer. That's funny.
No, I don't make them suffer. They choose to suffer or choose not to. That's
true,
the distinction.
True. I think I've had you play that on me, haven't you? Or in a game against me. That's terrible. So tell us about this next card. This one's also... Shivam, you might want to cover your ears.
So the next one costs 9 and a black, so that's 10 mana. It's another sorcery. It's from Time Spiral, my favorite block. And so
why am I not surprised?
Yeah,
it costs 10 mana, but it has a suspend cost of only 4 mana. So suspend for 2 BB to suspend for 2 turns. And when it resolves, target player sacrifices half the permanents he or she controls rounded down. But if you suspend it, while it's suspended, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, if it's suspended, that player may sacrifice a permanent. If they do, put 2 time counters on Curse of the Cabal.
I hate this card.
So again, this is not about the end effect resolving. Most of the time it doesn't actually resolve. It's about, I suspend it out there, and everyone kind of knows that when it resolves, I'm going to pick someone. And they're just like, I don't want it to be me.
Oh
So
God, target player. That's just
yeah, it's
not
not every
right.
player. It's target player. That's what makes it interesting. Is you have to decide, do I want to sacrifice something? I think that other guy's more of a threat. I think he's more likely to target that guy.
Yeah, it becomes this psychological game right at the table. And
We're
it's
two
like,
cards into this deck already, and I'm just already losing my mind.
Yeah.
It's just like we're just locked in this together. That is a perfect name for like, look, man,
yeah.
you're the one hitting yourself. I'm just
Yeah.
giving you a fist. That's all.
Here's this thing that's going to go off. I don't know who it's going to target.
Like,
I actually
look,
haven't
buddy,
decided.
I mean, I'm sorry that you have this hot potato that just happens to have a ticking time bomb in it, but while we're here, this is a Joker deck, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. This is wrong. This is so wrong.
These next two, Shivam, you should have already prepared yourself for. We've heard them before, but they're worth bringing up again.
The Sean Main special.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Havoc Festival is just, has to go in any Rakdos deck. It's just so perfectly Rakdos. It's, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 6-mana enchantment for black-red, which says, first of all, players can't gain life. And then second of all, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses half his or her life, rounded up. So this just, puts everyone on a very clear, we're going now timer, and it forces people to, make different decisions and different evaluations than they would otherwise, which is, the whole point of this.
It's great.
Look, man, the game's got to end, I guess. So
It's like playing on a table that is basically a spinning top.
Yep, pretty much.
And the next one?
And the next one is another
This is lovely.
classic, Painful Quandary. It's 3 black, so 5 mana, for an enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless he or she discards a card.
Yeah.
Yeah, the moments that this causes is just you play it and everyone's like, oh, that's not that bad. It's like that's just kind of a, bad enchantment. Why would you play that? But then a couple turns later, no one has been, bothering dealing with it. And the first couple times you're like, oh, I can pay 5 life. I'm at 40. It's fine. But then you start to not be able to pay life, and then you start to, make more and more awkward choices and realize that you've, lost 5 cards and 15 life to this thing, and so is every other player.
the decks I play tend to not have a ton of card draw because I'm very bad at Magic, and I'm just thinking, like, how many times have I sat there with like a spell I need, like the last card in my hand, so I'm going to eat 5 life. That's miserable, man. That's not. This is not an insignificant spell. This is a miserable spell.
But you got to
Yeah.
choose the 5 life or the card.
Yay!
Yeah,
Yay!
see? It's empowering.
This definitely feels like a demonic dragon deck.
Yes.
Like you are dealing with a demon dragon, and these are the choices he gives you. It's horrible. And the best part about making a deal with a demon is your next section. Why?
The next section I decided to call A Demon Cannot Be Trusted, in reference to his flavor text.
You don't say.
I also refer to this as
Yes.
no price is too high for vengeance. So earlier when I was saying, you have to ask not, would I do this? Is this a smart play? You ask, would Malfagor do this? And, would Malfagor pay 15 life to destroy a creature? Yeah, probably he would. Like, he's not worried about, other concerns. He's worried about, like, oh, did you mildly inconvenience me? I am going to punish you, like, arbitrarily. When you play Malphagor, you want to be the player that no one else can really predict, that is not going to, do the optimal play. They're going to do the spite play or just some random other play that's fun. So a good example of this card is one of the best Wrath spells out there, which is Phyrexian Purge. It's a 4-mana sorcery, 2 black-red, and it says pay 3 life per target, destroy any number of target creatures. I'm sure the Oracle text has been updated, but yeah, so if, your opponents have like 5 or 6 creatures, then you're going to pay, 3 times 5 life and destroy all of them, and it's like Plague Wind. for 4.
Plague Wind for 4, you said.
Yeah, and it can be very powerful, but sometimes it's, I pay a lot of life.
And okay, the worst thing, Shivam, he pays the life gleefully. and when he does, it's like you look at it, you're like, dude, you just spent 15 life to kill 5 creatures, and he's like, yep.
I mean, when in Malfagor, do what Malfagor does.
Exactly.
This seems to me like this whole deck so far, we've seen like 5 cards. Feels like you're definitely, like when you play this deck, you're going in with a mindset of like, you know what, I'm going to be hellbent. I'm going to be like losing life by the pound. And that's what I'm here to do. So that's what we're going to do. And that's awesome.
I don't really have ways to gain back the life.
No, because Malfegor does not care for your life gain.
Exactly. You're starting to understand.
See, Shivam? Yeah.
This is some nonsense.
Yeah, so a similar card to that is Fire Covenant. It's an instant, costs 3 mana, 1 black-red, and it deals X damage divided any way you choose amongst any number of target creatures, where X is equal to the amount of life you pay. So it's a similar type effect where you just, pay, 15, 20 life to kill a bunch of creatures unexpectedly. And no one really expects these cards because they're like pretty old cards that no one really sees because they're typically not great because, why would you pay so much life?
I remember playing Fire Covenant a million years ago. But no, actually, Fire Covenant seems pretty good though because like you've definitely played cards like Toxic Deluge before where you're paying life to, off creatures. And I could see this in a pinch coming in handy, especially since it's an instant. That's actually pretty neat. I don't know that I would play quite as suicidal as you would,
but Toxic Deluge is you only pay it up to like the threshold of the creatures you want to kill. This you're paying for every point of toughness.
Jeez. I'm not saying it's a good card, man. I'm just saying I get it.
But it's a card that no one expects. Like,
no one expects it.
That's the key part of it.
I don't think I saw the Phyrexian Purge, but I did see the Fire Covenant. I remember you casting it. It was at the end of, I think it was at the end of my turn, because you were like the next player or something. And then you just vaporize these creatures out of nowhere. And I'm like, what did you just do? Did you really just play Fire Covenant? And I pulled it out of your graveyard. I'm like, let me see that card. I'm like,
what the hell does this even do?
Yeah, it was a crazy game. The whole game was nuts. So what's this next card?
So this is a card that I put in the deck, and I just could never bring myself, whenever I'm like slotting things in, I can never bring myself to pull it out because it's just so weird and fun. It's Jagged Poppet, which is a 3-mana 3/4. So you already know it's going to be great. It's 1 black-red for a creature that whenever it is dealt damage, you are going to discard that many cards. So, not the safest thing to have around, but when you're hellbent, so hellbent being the mechanic of when you're out of cards in your hand, which Malphagor causes that to happen. When you're hellbent, whenever Jagged Poppet deals combat damage to a player, if you have no cards in hand, that player discards cards equal to the damage.
What? That just what? This seems so good. You have to be some kind of madman to play this stuff.
you play this out, and then you Malphagor. So now the first text line doesn't have any downside. And yet it's only a 3-mana 3/4 that Hypnotic Specters for 3 or something like that.
Did you hear that?
Hypnotic Specters.
That's exactly the way he plays this. He smiles broadly and goes, Oh
my God.
My favorite cards are ones that I can describe as there are no downsides.
I mean, for certain values of downside, okay, fine.
Right. So what's the second half of his...
Yeah, the flavor text is a demon cannot be trusted, followed by, and a dragon will not be ruled. Because he is both a demon and a dragon.
Ugh.
And this is one that I also refer to as bow before me. This is the, I am powerful, and it's sort of the swag points. It's the, just displaying yourself, laying it on the table, and not good things necessarily. But, so I put 2 cards in here next to each other, because I'm pretty sure I'm the only Magic player alive who would put these 2 cards in the same deck. One of them is Baneful Omen, and it really just cements what I'm talking about here, which is a 7-mana enchantment for black, which says, at the beginning of your end step, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you do, each opponent loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost. It's kind of it was printed in Rise of Eldrazi, and it was supposed to be a it's coming. You know that it's coming, and I am not afraid that you know that this is coming next.
And Shivam, we didn't actually cover it in the stats, we should have, but the mana curve is an average of 4.53 converted mana cost. So every card he reveals is going to do like 4.5 points of damage on average.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Like, this is just insane aquarium. This is the sort of deck that you would put a Bob into and just die.
Speaking of which, the next card that I'll talk about here is, sometimes Malfegor discards all the cards and you have no cards in hand and you kind of want cards back. So one of the best card draws ever printed in Magic is Ad Nauseam, which, most people probably are familiar with, but it's a 5-mana instant that says reveal the top card of your library, put that card into your hand, you lose life equal to its converted mana cost. You may repeat this process any number of times.
I mean,
I have certainly cast this card and just been like, and I reveal my first card. It is 7 mana. Ugh. I reveal my second card. It is 10 mana. Ugh. Maybe I'll stop.
that is a miserable.
But it's
it is.
When you do it, you know that you're demonstrating your dominance. You're saying like, I don't care about this life total.
I certainly don't care about you killing me.
Exactly.
No one kills me but me.
I have certainly used it to that effect before. Just, someone declares attackers at me and I say, in response, ad nauseum.
Jesus. In response, ad nauseum. Come on.
That's hysterical.
I think what says the most about my playstyle is that Phil and I were recently in a game where I had to figure out if I could concede at the right moment to stop someone attacking me. Like, whether concession used the stack was the rules question that I needed to answer. Because in the multiplayer, diplomacy kind of politicking, it's, maybe this person attacks me and I want to protect this other player who's done a positive thing for me earlier in the game. So if I concede, then it stops him getting his combat trigger, that kind of thing.
I neglected to mention, Daniel is playing in our league at work, right? We have the pseudo commanderin pre-con league, and he of course has the vampires deck.
Edgar Markov is a family man.
Yeah. We randomly assigned these, but it was clearly fate saying, no, this is what Daniel needs to play. Yeah, and that's right. Edgar Markov is a family man. What cards have you drafted recently? What were your last 3 drafts?
Well, the last 2 ones were... Oh, yeah, the last 3 ones, I guess, were Soren Markov and then the other 2 Sorens.
The Lord of Innistrad and Solemn Visitor,
Yeah,
right?
those ones.
Yeah.
He's a family man.
Yeah. Yes.
Jesus.
He's just assembling his family.
Uh-huh.
And what's this last card in A Dragon Will Not Be Ruled?
This last card is Coercive Portal. It's a 4-mana artifact from one of the Conspiracy sets.
I love that card.
Which I love Conspiracy. I thought it was a great product.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has Will of the Council. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you, each player votes for either Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, you sacrifice Coercive Portal, destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes, or the vote is tied, you draw a card. So it basically does all the things that Malphagor wants, which is, my hand runs out, I want to draw cards. Sometimes I want to destroy everyone's things. And also, more importantly, I want to make people make weird choices and pay homage to me as a powerful dragon demon.
Oh my god.
I have played this card once.
No, I actually like Coercive Portal quite a bit.
Mm.
It's fun to use in specific types of deck, just because it's either gonna wreck every. I mean, it adds such a fun little chaos game into it.
Yeah, I don't like having all of my creatures destroyed. And inevitably, when I played this, I got it out in 2 games. Each time I played it, I happened, to later develop more creatures than anybody else, and they just went, guess what? And they took them all away, and it sucked.
See, the problem is that you're developing attachments to these creatures.
Yes.
Malphagor is ready to sacrifice all of his minions in exchange for power.
This is a very Buddhist deck, man. You don't attach yourself to anything. All is impermanent. Everything dies.
Sometimes you have cards in your hand that you want to play, but sometimes you just want to play Malphagor.
You know what? Such is fate.
You only get to do one.
I don't think I've ever put that together.
This is amazing. Like every card you reveal is just making me like, I feel the goosebumps coming, and also I'm just like, what an amazing deck that also seems completely miserable to play against. But I love this. This is great. Like, I'm just enjoying how ridiculous this is so much.
Well, you have to come to Los Angeles. You have to take a weekend trip to Los Angeles, and we will play this deck.
That would be a blast.
Yes, you'll meet some of your older friends and make all new ones too.
I'm a big fan of both of these things.
Yes.
It's funny because I think the first deck that I played against Sean when he first showed up at Riot was Phage, and he apparently had this impression of me as like a very spiky, like optimizing player because of how I was playing the deck. And then the next time I played Malphagor, and he was like, "Oh, I misread this person."
Yeah, that it's easy to misread when you play something like Phage, and you're so clever about it, and you get the kills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Malphagor, and Malphagor's like, "Hey, maybe we'll win, maybe we won't. I don't care."
It's like, why don't we find out together?
Yeah, why don't we find out what's on top of the deck? Oh, 7 life.
Whoops.
Yeah. Now that you've said it, continuing with the Buddhist theme here.
Yeah, the last grouping of cards I refer to as "Today is the only day that matters."
I'm sorry.
Also, Hellbent and Loving It. It's just, I don't know, Malphagor is very Rakdos, and like Hellbent was a Rakdos mechanic, but Malphagor was in Conflux, but it just synergizes so perfectly with all the Rakdos Hellbent cards that you can't not support it for that. Actually, my first ever deck you mentioned earlier was a Rakdos pre-constructed deck that I got in high school and played with people. It was had like Gobhobbler rats, I think, and just various things that triggered and got better when they were Hellbent. And I remember talking to people later on who were just like, "Oh, Hellbent was the worst mechanic in that set." And I was like, "Why do you think that?" And they're like, "Because, cards are a resource, and also like hidden information is important to Magic, and like you can't trick anyone if you don't have cards in your hand." And I was like, "That's a good point, but what you're missing is that when you're Hellbent, you have nothing to do with your hands, so you just start to naturally rub them together." And you're just sitting across the table, just smiling and rubbing your hands together. And that's when, like, when you put it together, it's like, this is what it feels like to be part of the Rakdos Guild.
No future,
Jesus.
just today.
But yeah, these are cards. Some of them have to do with being Hellbent, but most of them are just, Malphagor is going to discard your hand. You got to kind of figure out something to do after that. So this kind of just plays into that with, I don't like playing, typical cards as much as possible, like commander staples. I try to avoid them because I prefer each of my decks to feel distinct and to play things that are more on theme, I guess. So one of them here is Wheel of Fate, which is sorcery with no mana cost, but suspends for 1 red for 4 turns, and just, when it goes off, each player discards their hand, then draws 7 cards. So this is great with Malphagor because you, suspend it out, play Malphagor, and then get 7 cards back.
Yeah, I actually like Wheel of Fate a lot as well. I use it in most of the decks. I need Wheel of Fortune style effects just because it's cheaper, and Suspend is also just fun. It's such a great card.
Yeah.
And it fits your deck. It fits your theme.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, the next one on here is, like I said, things that are more thematic rather than necessarily good. Grafted Skullcap is a 4-mana artifact that says, at the beginning of your draw step, draw a card. At the end of your turn, discard your hand.
It seems worthwhile, right? It's a good trade.
I mean, it basically means that after Malphagor, which, like, you really have to think about all the cards in this deck as pre- and post-Malphagor. Like, Malphagor will come down at some point in the game, and some of the cards are useful before Malphagor, and other cards are useful in that, like, okay, now I'm just top decking and figuring out what to do. And this is a post-Malphagor card.
It looks like a piece of clothing that Malphagor would wear, too. Maybe after making it.
Yeah. Yes. It's this weird, like,
Yes.
clearly metal stapled onto, like, I guess an ogre or demon skull. It's unclear to me.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, we'd have to ask Malphagor, but would he answer us?
He might, but at a cost.
He's like, what's it worth to you, buddy?
I love this next card. It's one of those that I'll just shoehorn into decks randomly. It's a 6-mana Omen Machine. It's an artifact that says, first of all, players can't draw cards. And this is great because sometimes someone over there with a wizard deck is doing some crazy weird stuff, and I'm just like, no, you don't get to do that. And then, at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player exiles the top card of their library. If it's a land card, they put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, they cast it without paying its mana cost to Fable. So there's a couple subtle things about this card.
Wait.
Yeah.
Each player's draw step.
Yeah.
Exile the top card. If it's a land, they play. Why?
So, again, in the post-Malphagor world, this is basically just, I get to guaranteedly get stuff, and other people aren't accelerating crazily past me. It's basically ideal.
This turns the game into Flux. You draw one, play one every turn.
Yeah. The other subtle aspect to this card, which most people don't recognize, is that it says that player casts it without paying its mana cost to Fable. It does not say that player may cast it.
Right.
You know, I saw that.
Yeah. So sometimes someone will reveal a card that they didn't really want to play, and, now they are playing it.
Yes.
How about that?
I guess we are casting Day of Judgment.
It's really crazy. I forget what it was you made me cast, but it was something definitely unpleasant. I think it might have been a board wipe. And I'm like, but I don't want to. And you're like, well, it doesn't say may.
Life is full of choices that we don't want to make all the time. You just learn to accept it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is like the most Buddhist deck I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, this next page, too.
This is just absurd.
So, yeah.
The second half of the day.
This next card, I refer to as Poor Man's Necropotence. And it's a nihilistic glee. It's a card from the original Rakdos set in Ravnica. It's a 4-mana enchantment, 2 black, which says, first of all, it has the ability 2 and a black, discard a card. Target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. This is not very useful. More relevantly, if you're hellbent, you can pay 1 mana and pay 2 life to draw a card. You can only play this ability if you have no cards in your hand.
But you can stack them.
You can stack them.
So if you're hellbent, it turns into greed.
Yes.
Basically.
And so, like, when in the post-Malphagor world, you have, 5 mana up, and again, this is Malphagor, I don't care about paying life. You can stack a bunch of these to draw back a bunch of cards in your hand and still have this thing out there. And I will say that the target opponent loses 1 life and gains 1 life has saved me from death in the past.
Jeez.
That is
cute.
Yeah, cute. That's one word.
Yeah, I've always liked this card.
Oh my God.
Next card is sort of a second Malphagor in a way, but doing different things with it. It's a Thought Gorger. This was from Rise of Eldrazi. It's a 2 black, so 4 mana for a trample creature, a horror. And when it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card in your hand. And then if you do, discard your hand. So it discards your hand, gets a bunch of +1 counters. And then when Thought Gorger leaves the battlefield, you draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. So it kind of,
that is so crazy.
Eats the cards in your hand for a bit, and then when it dies, it gives them back.
I'm not ready to step off the cliff. I'm just not ready. Like, I look at cards like this, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I just don't know.
Because you're not ready for when someone just like, pacifism. And you're like, well, okay. I guess it's going to chill there for a while now. That happens sometimes, and,
Has anybody blinked it?
Well, if they do, I just draw the cards. I just draw a bunch of cards and then discard a bunch of cards again. So it's not terrible. The way that you're supposed to put this card into decks is when you're adding counters on it after it's entered, so that like you are drawing more than you have discarded. But that's not Malphagor's plan.
And now this final card is what changed this from playing like, okay, this is some kind of weird chaos deck, to my mind, like I just basically I kept cool, Shivam. I kept my cool. But when he started using this card and he started actually using it, when its effect came into play, I just mentally I grabbed my face and I started screaming. And because I'm like, no, I don't like any of this.
So yeah, this last card is, as Phil says, the one that excited Phil most about this deck. But honestly, it only shows up in a few games, and it very, very rarely ends up doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's Hellcarver Demon. It's a 6-mana 6/6 flyer. It's a demon. It costs 3 black, black, black. When Hellcarver Demon deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice all other permanents you control and discard your hand.
What?
Then, exile the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs.
Yeah. I mean, right?
What?
Like,
why?
This is just...
I don't like Rakdos at all.
It's a great card because, I don't know, it is a very powerful effect in the right circumstance, but I have definitely connected with it and just flipped over 6 lands and just, okay. But,
Well,
you get to try again next time you connect.
Oh my god, every time?
Every time, yeah, because it sacrifices all other permanents.
No.
Have you thought about putting the sword that gives Myriad onto this guy?
That would certainly be interesting.
Because then you would be in Crazy Town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The downside is it has no trample.
Yep. So it has flying, but it can often just get chump blocked, which is why I said that, a lot of times it's just a 6-mana 6/6. But when this comes at you and you have a flyer, you're looking at it and, you're thinking, I'm willing to take 6 damage in order to see what the heck happens when this goes off, right? That's usually when it connects, actually.
Yeah. That's when it connected with me.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, we looked at the board state and I looked at you and I'm just like, it'd be real nice if this could, go off right now. And you acquiesced, I think.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, you know what? I've never seen this before. I've looked at the card before and just like shied away from it like a horse might fire. And and so I wanted to see what happened. And Shivam, I regretted it. I regretted it. It was like this. It was like the world broke open and I was peering into another world completely different from ours. It was like having a psychotic break from reality, or at least what I imagine it to be, where suddenly nothing is the same and everything you used to expect and know and love is gone.
Nothing has meaning anymore.
Yep.
Nothing has meaning anymore. Exactly.
I don't remember exactly what cards I flipped over.
You did it like 3 or 4 times.
I did.
Because then after it was involuntary. Because here's the thing, Shivam. He's just playing the up to 6 cards, and like he got a couple of lands on one of the hits, and it wasn't pleasant. But sometimes those cards are big demons, right? Like, we're only talking about the 15 or so fun card, like most fun cards in the deck, but he's got these other creatures, and it's just unpleasant. And like Artisan of Kozilek, It That Betrays, Mogus, God of Slaughter.
This deck has a vision.
Yeah, Sire of Insanity, and
it certainly is.
And so. And so he's just doing these terrible things. And then after really the first wave of attacks from these things, it's like it's involuntary. Now guess what? Hellcarver Demon's going to do it again, whether or not you acquiesce, Phil, because all your flyers are dead.
Yeah, That was a fun game because I remember people like at the Riot Commander nights. There's usually multiple groups and people walk by, and I remember someone walked by and they were just looking at the board and they're like, "What happened to you? Are you like out of the game?" I was like, "No, I'm not out of the game."
Yep, no.
They're like, "Where did your
No.
lands and everything else go?" I was like, "Oh, I got this Hellcarver Demon. He's keeping up the
details.
fort."
He's doing what he needs to. That's right. You have a note in here: Hellcarver plus entreaties plus insurrection.
Yeah, that's right. I think the way
Yeah.
that game ended was
That-
someone else insurrectioned and took Hellcarver Demon and attacked with it, and then started casting stuff off their deck.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Shivam, it was a nightmare. It
This
was
is-
It was the best
You
kind
are
of nightmare.
upending the norms of the format, sir.
yes. Yes. Are you suggesting that D-Haas be burned at the EDH stake?
I'm just saying that some people like to play Magic the way Richard Garfield's intended, and some people don't. like this is amazing. This whole deck is so dripping with flavor and ridiculousness. I mean, I'm in love. This is amazing. Like
Yeah,
this
it's
is
really good.
completely bonkers town. I love everything about it, but it's also just I can't even say the words because we have censors. So this is just buggish insane is all I'm saying.
It's truly crazy. It was inspiring. It was horrifying all at the same time. And really, when I saw this thing in operation, I knew I had to share it with you guys.
Oh, this seems fabulous. Like I want to build this now. This looks so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks so fun and so dumb.
It's the deck that I have a lot of EDH decks, but this is the one that whenever I'm opening Magic packs, whenever I'm like playing limited or something like that, I'm always looking at card picks within the back of my mind. Would this go into Malphagor really well? And like I will pick things badly in draft games just so I can get a card that I'm like, oh yeah, Malphagor really needs this.
I feel like all of us have like that one pet deck where it's the first thing you look at. Like, yeah, all the other cards could be fine for other decks, but you're always going to be hunting for, like for me, it's for my Tajik Soldiers deck. Every card I look at, I'm like, will this work in my Boros deck? Probably not because it's green and blue, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
So I do have one question. Can you tell us what the one Planeswalker is and why it's in there?
Oh yeah. It's my favorite Planeswalker is why it's in there. It's
Oh, well, that's a good reason.
yeah, so most people forget this one exists. It's Chandra Ablaze. She is the 6-mana Chandra, also known as Bad Chandra. She works pretty well in this deck, but I just always thought she was the most well-designed Planeswalker of any Planeswalker because all of her abilities interact with each other in interesting ways instead of just feeling like, oh, it's 3 kind of good things that fit in the color pie. It's like her first ability is discard a red card to deal 4 damage.
No, discard a
just
card.
any card. Okay, yeah. To deal 4 damage to something, creature or player, I think.
It's +1, discard a card. If a red card is discarded this way, Chandra Ablaze deals 4 damage to target creature or player.
That's right. So you can just choose to discard something and do nothing.
Yeah, you could, which sometimes helps you, right?
Yep. And then, -2, each player discards his or her hand, then draws 3 cards, which, in a post-Malphagor world is great.
In a post-Malphagor world.
Yep.
And then -7, cast any number of red instants or sorceries from your graveyard without paying their mana cost.
Oh,
So I just always like
Fair.
this card because, the first ability interacts with the ult, and the second ability interacts with the ult, and the first ability interacts with the second ability because you get to refill your hand. And so it's just, I don't know, it's a very clean card. I really like it.
Awesome.
yeah, it's very nice. In this particular deck, it's very
Yeah.
nice.
But it costs 6 mana, which is why it never really saw play.
So this morning, I shared the deck list with our patrons in the $10 patron chat group we maintain on Facebook. And Andy Bentalay, he had some suggestions. He says, you have some saucy instant and sorceries, but not a lot of ways to copy them. He suggests inclusion of Fork and Dual Caster Mage. And if you want to go more instant and sorcery heavy, then there's Thermo Alchemist to ping all the opponents, and access to some utility spells like Mizzix's Mastery, Mizium Mortars, Vandal Blast, Volcanic Vision, Incite Rebellion,
and then you
Blasphemous
you
Act.
swap out Malphagor with Niv Mizzet, and then you
Well, yeah. And he says, don't forget Past in Flames to do it all again. That Past in Flames is a pretty good suggestion because, and Volcanic Visions, actually, because you're pitching everything else.
you are.
Maybe you won't pitch those two.
I found that in this deck, with the way that I have built it, you tend not to get above like 7 or 8 mana. So, because then something...
Before sacrificing it.
Yeah, something happens at that point, which makes the game hard to predict. So it's hard to like build up to the combo of like, oh, I passed in Flames, and then I cast this, and then I cast that, because you tend to be casting one thing a turn.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just the way I built it.
I am in awe of this deck.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you can also build it in a more Reanimator style, because you're discarding your hand and causing other people to sack creatures. So you can definitely go harder in on more reanimation effects if you want to actually optimize around the effect, I guess. But
You want to actually win.
But you have to ask yourself, would Malphagor care about reanimating anything?
that's exactly what you have to ask yourself.
Well, it is almost the end of the show, and by long-standing tradition, we like to talk about ways to kind of hose this strategy.
Yeah. I saw that this was on your suggestions, and I feel like it makes sense for other deck discussions, but I wrote down here what is best in life, which is in reference to Conan, what is best in life? To drive your enemies before you, hear the lamentations of their women. And I think when you ask what hoses a deck, typically people are thinking like, oh, what causes me to lose? But Malphagor causes himself to lose a lot of the time. So it's really like I measure success by how weird did I make this game? How interesting, how many interesting choices did I cause people to have? So it's kind of hard for you to hose that. That having been said, he kind of folds to, competently built decks. I don't know. You're the player in the group of 4 who's sitting there and doing your own thing, and everyone's just like, oh, that's the Malphagor player. He's going to be sort of a wild card, but I'm not too worried about him. I'm going to focus on this other guy who's playing Narset or something like that.
Man.
Yep, and then suddenly Malphagor has his buddy Hellcarver Demon out, and the whole world cracks
And
open.
sometimes crazy things happen, but that's just, the risk you take when you sidle up next to a Demon Dragon.
Yeah, it's on the tin, Demon Dragon.
Yeah, I think probably the most common thing that actually hoses this is not getting mana to cast stuff. You'll notice that there aren't many mana rocks or card draw spells in here. If I were looking to optimize this to be more consistent, that would be where I would go. But I'm more okay with there being occasional games where I do nothing in exchange for the games where crazy things happen.
Well, I think the trade is well worth it. It's a great deck.
This looks amazing.
Thanks for hanging out with us, everyone. Daniel, thank you for coming on the show finally. I know we've talked about it for a couple of months, and we made the time, and you did it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm always excited to spread the gospel of Malphagor.
How can people reach you if they have questions about the twisted world of Malphagor?
Probably the best way, I guess, would be email, wicketlink@gmail.com. So wicketlink@gmail. It's probably the best way to get a hold of me. Feel free to ask me questions or, whatever.
And you don't mind if listeners send you emails saying, hey, thanks for the Malphagor suggestion. I played it on my unsuspecting meta.
Absolutely not. I would love to hear the stories that people have about what they've done with Malphagor or different ways they've taken the deck, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And listeners, if you have a Malphagor deck and want to share some stories, remember to tweet it at us. I'll print them out and bring them to Daniel. Daniel does not have Twitter.
Nope.
What?
Yeah.
Malphagor wouldn't have Twitter.
Brave, intelligent man.
Yeah. The question you have to ask yourself, would Malphagor have Twitter?
Malphagor made Twitter, man. Are you kidding?
Listeners, you rock for sticking it out this long. Thank you for listening to us. And special thanks go to our patrons who show their support by donating to us so we can keep on improving the show. And each week we like to call out 3 of you. This week it's Zachariah Martinez, Chad Dominique, and Sean Lemonager. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Lemonager?
Dude, I don't know white people names. I'm not even gonna try.
Now, Daniel, it's a time-honored tradition that our guests take us out.
I think going with the Malphagor theme makes sense. So, commanderin, what is best in life?
Malfegor.
That's a great way to go out.
Word.
Commanderin. How do you say Malphagor?
Malphagor.
Malfegor.
I get kind of warm and tingly. Is it hot in here? I gotta open my shirt.
No, it's just hell.